I don't remember actually. It's probably like a 3 or 4. The hobbyist is a hobbyist is stocking her aquarium with exactly 3 fish of different types with exactly 2 species of plants. The only fish under consideration are these folks, and the only plants under consideration are these folks. By the way, the LSAT tends to do this. They tend to put one group from one part of the alphabet and another group from another part of the alphabet. So if you just take note of that, then you don't necessarily have to memorize who's in each group, right? You're just like, oh, low alphabet, plants. High alphabet, fish. All right. And then it says she will observe the following conditions. All right. Because she is stocking or selecting exactly 3 fish of 5, this is sometimes called an in-out game. It's a type of grouping game. Remember, there's just ordering, grouping, and hybrid, and then some random ones. In-out games are just grouping games. The thing that's special about them is that you have only 2 groups rather than 3 or more, right? So basically, an in-out game is a grouping game with only 2 groups. And the 2 groups are the in-group, those that were selected, and an out-group, those that were not selected. So today I decided to do a visual version of in-out games. You can do like chains, and you can link together all the if-then statements. You can just keep all the if-then statements separate. I tend to like more visual diagrams, but I've done this all different ways. So let me just show you the visual way of doing this, and then you can decide if that's how you want to do in-out games going forward. This is what I'm thinking. So we have 3 fish, 1, 2, 3, that are going to be in, right? And because there are 3 that are in, there's got to be 2 that are out. So I'm going to put a line here. This is my in group, and this is my out group. And in the out group, I'm going to have 2 fish that are out, right? Always. Okay, and then for the plant species, we're going to have 2 that are in, and because there are 4 plant species, we're going to have 2 that are out. So I'm going to have another row. Here are my plants in, and here are my plants out. Questions so far? Okay, yeah, this is a visual way of representing this in group and this out group, or this stocked and not stocked. The first rule says if she selects G, she can select neither H nor K. No, sorry, either H nor Y. You could do this like this. Don't draw this, but you could do this like this. You could say, okay, if she has G, then she doesn't have H, and she doesn't have Y. Right? That's one way of representing that rule, because it's saying if in, then both of these things are out. Now, I wouldn't write that if I'm going to go ahead and go down the visual path. Instead, what I would do is I'd come up here and say, okay, well, if G is in the in group, then H and Y have to be in the out group. So H goes over here, and then Y goes down here. So the one advantage to a visual diagram, at least in this type of game, or at least in this game, is that now I can see what's going to happen with my fish and my plants a little more obviously than I can here. Both are correct. This just has a little bit more information. Okay, let's keep going. Then it says, she cannot select H unless she selects K. Now, a lot of times with these sentences, these unless clauses, people can translate them correctly if they just think about it intuitively. But if you want a rule, I can give you a rule. But what is the, what's your guess as to what this means in terms of if-then? She can't select H unless she selects K. Yeah.
If you have H, then you have K.
Yeah, that's correct. If you have H, then you have K. If you just so you know the rule, unless statements always have 2 clauses. What are the 2 clauses here? Anyone? In this one rule.
So she can't have K without H. Is that what you're...
She can't have K without H?
She can have K without H.
She can, yeah. So the rule is if you have H, then you have to have K, right? So the if-then statement that we're all saying here is if H, then K, right? But what are the 2 clauses in the original unless statement before we do any translating into if-then? The first one is she cannot have H, and then the second one is she selects K. Right? So in my mind, the two clauses right now, before we do any translating, are not H and K. And the way to translate unless is to take one of those clauses and negate them, just one of them, and make that your if clause. So here, what this said originally was she can't have H unless she has K. The way to translate it is to take one of them. In this case, we could take this one right here, negate it. What's the negation of this?
H.
H, right? And then because I decided to negate that one, I have to make that one my if clause. Can't let it become your then clause, otherwise you mess this up. And so then that becomes my if clause, and I don't do anything to the other clause. That's the rule. And notice we end up with the same thing as what you thought intuitively. So if you get mixed up with unless, just remember that you take one of the clauses, you negate it, and you turn that clause into your if clause. The easiest way to do this is to do it to your first clause. It actually doesn't matter which one you do it to, but you might as well do it to your first one because then you can just leave that in the if position. Okay? So let's take a look at the next one. The next one says she cannot select J unless she selects W, so she can't select J unless she selects W. Anyone want to go through the process? Okay?
If J,
If J,
then W.
if J, then W. Is that what you're going to say?
No, I was gonna. Well, yes, but I feel like if you're following what you said, then I guess it gets to the same way. But I wasn't gonna follow.
It's alright.
Like if you. Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I just had to think through it in my
Yeah,
head.
no
I
worries,
was
no worries.
thinking
I mean, just a little thought experiment here. If you decided to negate this clause and make that your if clause, what would you get? If not W,
then not J. No, then
then not J. Because remember, are you?
Oh,
you
sorry.
you can only negate one thing.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. So you only negate one thing, and you make that thing your if clause. So here, if you decided to negate this, you would have to come here and become your if clause, and then you'd leave the other thing alone, which is not J. Right? And this is correct as well, because what is this? This is just the contrapositive of that, right? So, now, in games, it turns out that most times it looks like this exact format, and the negative format is a format that we use in everyday speech pretty commonly. Like, hey, you can't leave the office until you finish that assignment. Right? Like, okay, I gotcha. Like, if I want to leave, I have to finish this assignment. Or if I haven't finished it, then I can't leave. Right? So, it's a phrase that we're very familiar with, but in LR, they tend to use unless in ways that we don't normally use them. Like, you must run unless it's sunny outside, and you're like, what? It's because it's something you're not familiar with, then you might want to come in and use this translation. Yeah?
And do we always have to find the contrapositive in games?
No, you don't always have to. You could just find the original rule. But you do need to know how to find the contrapositive if that information becomes necessary. So, in the contrapositive...
But is it an absolutely necessary inference that we must make?
But you have to know how to do that, in case a question depends on your making that inference. Okay, so anyways, back to the second rule. She cannot select H unless she selects K. So if H, then K. I already have H in my outgroup. So the rule is if H, then K. But this is H in the outgroup. So what's the contrapositive of if H, then K?
Don't have H not K.
If not K.
Got here, if not K, then not H.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, that's correct. So, in other words, if K is out, H is out. In this case, I didn't draw the original rule, I draw the contrapositive, but I did that because it links in, and I don't have to, have H in my diagram twice. Okay, She cannot select J unless she has W. So if J, then W. J is on top because J is a fish, and W is down here. Huh? If she selects K, she must select X. Okay, if K, then X. Do I have either one of those in my diagram? I have K, right? So if K, then X, is that going to link into this?
No.
Not directly, right? We'd have to find the contrapositive, which is what?
If not X, then not K.
If not X, then not K. And so then I can come over here and say, okay, if I don't have X, in other words, if X is out, then K is out. All right, at this point, how many variables are left or not discussed?
Z and
Yeah. Well, first of all, you can just figure out the number. How many slots are not filled? 2, right? So we got 2, one on top, one on bottom. So on the top row, we have J, G, H, K. So the floater is L, right? On the bottom row, W, yeah, so it's got to be Z. So there are floaters. So when we're going through the questions, we can be like, oh, I still haven't found this yet. That's who it is. Questions about this? That's one way you could write down these rules.
Question.
Yeah.
What's an easy way to tell if a question's an in and out grouping game? Like if you should set it up this way.
Yeah. The biggest clue here is it says exactly 3 fish, and then but you have 5 fish,
Okay.
and so you're like, oh, okay. Well, I gotta choose 3 of 5, and then they said 2 of 4. A lot of times, this is actually a little bit more complicated in an in-out game because we have 2 groups. In most in-out games, you just have one group of things. Like you have 7 things, and they're like, oh, you're gonna choose 5 of 7 things. You're like, okay, well, it's 5 in, 2 out. Sometimes they don't tell you how many are in and how many are out. They just tell you you have to select some of these 7 people, and that's part of the game too. It's like, okay, well, I don't know how many I'm gonna select, but I know some are gonna be in and some are gonna be out. Okay, now. You could do this, you don't have to do this. It actually kind of depends on how comfortable you are reading these backwards. So for example, let's just take a test here. If we don't feel comfortable with it, then we'll go ahead and do the contrapositive. But what happens if J is in? W's in. Cool with that, right? Okay, what happens if J is out?
then W is out.
We don't know.
Nothing. Because this rule says if J is in, W's in.
But the contrapositive is not W, not J.
In other words, if W's out, then J's got to be out.
Oh.
But it doesn't say anything about what happens when J is out. Like if J is out, the rule dies. So there's 2 times when if-then statements die. They die when the if clause has not been met or won't be met, and they die when the necessary condition has been met, the then clause. So here, when I say if J is in, the if clause has been met and the rule gets triggered. If J goes out, then the rule dies. It's just like, oh, well, I don't know what happens when J is out. What happens if W is out?
The J's
And then J is out.
J has to be out, right? Now, some people can look at this visualization and say, oh, that's very obvious to me because if I put W over here, then I better not put J there because that would create a conflict. If that's not so obvious to you, then we might want to go ahead and write the contrapositive. How many people feel like they could, like if I told you that W is out, you would not accidentally put J in. You would say, oh, that means J has to be out. How many people can see that? If you can see that, Don, what are you thinking?
I'm just thinking about the contrapositive, like the, what is it called, the flow diagram flow.
The flow. Oh, the direction?
Yeah,
Okay.
like if W then J, like I mean if J then W. So I'm trying to just follow that instead of trying to look at the diagram.
But just trying to like keep it in your head.
Yeah.
So you're thinking to yourself this,
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, what's contrapositive?
Yeah.
Which is if not W, then not
Not
J.
J.
Yeah, visualization is different because we're no longer having negatives, right? The contrapositive here is this, The one downside to this, with this game at least, is you don't get to take advantage of the slots as much, right? Like in some cases, if you fill up 2 of these slots, you'll instantly realize that everyone else has to go in. Whereas if you don't have, if you're looking over here, you just kind of like, oh, okay, cool, these things are out, what next, right? So the visualization can help a little bit with that. There's a little bit of lost information, but this is generally more comfortable for a lot of people because that's how we do most if-then statements, right? Yeah, question.
I'm still having a hard time with the diagram. I don't know why it's not clicking for me, but it's one of those like, if G were to be out, that doesn't necessarily mean that like H and Y have to be in, because it's not.
Yeah.
So like that's the only way that the diagram to me is still confusing, because in my mind, like that doesn't help in that scenario for me. Like
Well, so the original rule is if G is in, right,
yeah,
then
that's what I'm
H
still struggling with.
and Y are out, right?
Right.
Okay. So when G is out, what happens?
H and Y could be in or could be out.
Right.
Yes. Like you
Yeah,
could
there's
just
no-
like you can just dismiss the rule.
Yeah.
So when I look up here and I'm like, okay, if G is in, then this stuff is going to happen. If G is out, the rule doesn't get triggered. That's all.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I know if then statements are a little confusing. They test them over and over again.
Whoever came up with this must be psychotic.
They do have emotional problems.
I feel like I am completely lost in the sense that I want to feel comfortable with this negation and the contrapositive. I want to understand why if G is in, sorry, G is out, then H could be in or out. Like, what's
So-
rational?
So I think the most useful thing for right now is just to remember that an if-then statement is telling you what will happen when the if clause is triggered, when the if clause happens. But when the if clause doesn't happen, it's not telling you anything. Now, you want to understand why. I mean, maybe the best way to understand this intuitively is to give you an example. If I run a marathon, then I'm going to get tired. Are you cool with that?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I don't run a marathon?
You could be tired or not.
We don't know. It doesn't tell me about that situation. The mistake that people make though is like, oh, you didn't run a marathon, you'll be fine. They're like, no, I wouldn't. I had 10 Jaeger bombs last night. Wasted. Can't even think straight, right? So, just because I didn't run a marathon doesn't mean I'm not going to be tired. We just have no clue. Like you have to. It's like you have to put your blinders on and say, okay, well, the if-then statement, when the if clause is triggered, I can know a lot. But when the if clause is not triggered, I just don't know anything. The rule is dead. So when G is in, I know that H and Y go out. When G is out, it didn't tell me about what happens when G's out. Now, one thing we can do now, and this is what I'm trying to figure out with you guys, is should we just go ahead and draw another diagram with the contrapositives? Because then you could just not even think about the contrapositives. You have one diagram with them and one of them without. It has some challenges too, though, because now you have 2 diagrams. You're wasting time creating all this stuff. I prefer just to leave it like this. It's clean. It's small. But
Sorry, one last question.
tell me when or ask me. Okay.
So what happens if G, with the if J then W? What happens when J is out? Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Because it says if J is in, then I know W is in. But if J is out, it doesn't tell me, right?
So regardless of whether the then statement, regardless of
What the then statement says. Yeah.
even if it's negative or positive, it has nothing to do with okay.
Yeah. Now, contrapositives do have meaning though. So think for a second. If W goes out, could you put J in?
No,
Why not?
because the contrapositive would be
You could look at the contrapositive, or you don't even have to do the contrapositive. You could just look at this and say, well, if I put W out, I better not put J in because J would force W in. So, in some ways, you don't need the contrapositive.
I don't see that in that diagram, but I
Okay,
see
let me
that.
just draw this for a half second. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's say they tell you W goes out. Right? That's all they tell me. I'm like, sweet. Okay, I look over here and I go, what do I know about W? I say, well, they said if J is in, W's in. But W's now out, right? W's over here. If W's out, can I put J right here?
No. 'Cause
I
it
mean,
moved
I know
up
to
here.
say no, but I don't.
No, why?
I don't.
Okay,
understand
what
why.
happens when J goes in?
W is in.
Whoop. That's not, I can't do that, because W, they just told me W's out. So that's actually, well, all we're doing is we're just doing the contrapositive, essentially. We're saying, oh, okay, so if J is in, W's in, so if W goes out, J has to be out as well. And oftentimes with the visualization, you don't need to write out the contrapositive because you're just basically looking at that backwards, saying, uh-oh, okay, so I better not let J go in because that's going to force W to come in, which is contradicting what they just told me. They just told me W's out. Now I know that can get harder for some of these, but let's keep going. So I think what we're going to do is we're not going to do the contrapositives. We're just going to leave this here and try to get good at reading this as it is. 12. Which of is an acceptable selection of fish and plants? Okay, so this is a process of elimination question, right? What's the easiest way to approach these?
Row by row.
Rule by rule, right? So what's an easy rule from our little diagram here? Okay, if G is in, H and Y are out, right? So if G is in, do we have any where H and Y are still in?
A.
A, right? Okay. How about, H and Y are both in. Well, that's not good. So in answer choice B, we have G. Do we have HY?
No.
Nope. In C, we have G. Do we have HY?
No.
No.
Okay, in D, we don't have G. So what does that mean?
That you can H or Y.
Yeah, you can talk about that. It's almost like H and Y doesn't even nothing. It like means nothing, right? Like if you're talking about HY, which is fine, it's almost like you're still thinking about this rule, but this rule doesn't even. It could just not exist. There's no connection between G and H and Y because it's just like if the world ends tomorrow, then this is what's going to happen, and you're like, well, the world's not ending tomorrow, so well, I hope not, right? And so. Like, I don't care what you say. You could say, blah, 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 Seinfeld's not funny, like, whatever. I just would ignore you. Like, you could say anything. So, I think we just want to get used to the idea that the rule does not exist. So, for D and E, I'm just like, oh, the rule doesn't get triggered, so I'm not even, just not going to think anything, right? Like, okay, cool. So, what's another easy rule?
If H,
J and then W.
Sure, J, W, right? Okay, so I'm only going to look to the answer choices that have J in, and that's going to be B, C, and D. And do any of them have or are lacking W?
C.
C. Right? Okay, so that's out. Okay, another easy one is if X is out, K is out. So do we have any where X is out? In other words, not in the list? E. And
K's in.
K is in, right? That's not good. So E is out. Same in D, X is out, but K is out as well, so that's fine. We have another rule here. We have if K is out, H is out. We only have B and D left. Is K out in either one of those?
D.
It's out in D. So in D, if K is out, H has to be out, but H is in, so that's wrong. So that's the answer. All right, cool. Let's keep going. 13. If if the hobbyist selects H. So 13, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, I want one person to try to tackle this so we can go through it together and just keep going back to the diagram and get good at reading it. Who wants to do this?
I have a question.
Sure. You have a question?
Would you actually draw that, or would you just visually look at the diagram?
There's enough chaos going here that I would draw it.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
if you don't draw this diagram at all? You just draw this for each question. 'Cause that's
You could.
okay. That's okay.
You could do that.
Okay.
You wrote out all the rules individually.
Sort of, kind of, just something like that.
Okay, so you linked them together as a chain.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing about this is sometimes, yeah, like if they say something like G is in, you can right away see stuff, and you may end up not diagram. I'm gonna diagram now just so we're all on the same page. But
Got
yeah, certainly with this, there's times when you just like see the answer and you're like, oh, got it, never mind.
Okay.
Cool. So in this one, who wants to do this? You got it? Okay. So they said H is in. What should
H
I do?
is in,
Mhm.
so, K has to be in.
Okay, so first of all, I'll write this here. H is in. And you're saying K has to be in. How come?
She cannot select H unless she selects K,
Okay.
so
Sure.
she has to
Now,
be K.
if you saw it, can you see it here too, just by chance? You can't see that.
No.
Okay, so this says, what does this say right here?
I wrote H equals K on my paper.
So H does not equal K. If H is in, then K is in, but if K is in, that doesn't mean that H is in. So one thing, if you write that on your paper, you're actually going to want to write this, if H then K, not H equals K, because this suggests like, oh, if I have H, then I have K, and if I have K, then I have H.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily true. Well, let's talk about this really quick here. This says if K is out, H is out, right? And right now I have H in. So could I put K out?
No.
What happens if K goes out?
H goes out.
H goes out.
H goes out. Elliot?
I was gonna kind of give my 2 cents on the drawing, the diagramming.
Yeah.
So, just from previous studying, what I learned is to take the opposite and then negate.
Sure.
So-
the contrapositive.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So, for like the diagramming, you literally you move the letters over and then you flip the arrow around.
That's right. So we could do that. And that's what we were talking about at the beginning. Should we create this whole diagram again and have the contrapositive?
Yeah.
Or
Or you could do like, what is it? So it's, for example, J and W, J, arrow W, and then W with a cross over it, arrow J, cross over it, and then just that's it. Like, I feel like people are overthinking it. It's just, it's, you gotta,
you can do this.
because like I was the same when I first learned about it.
Yeah. So
It's like, yeah, it's a lot of just overthinking what you.
So what you're suggesting is to write something like, okay, you have J, then you have W, and if you don't have W, then you don't have J.
Right? Yes.
Okay,
And-
so you can, yeah,
Yeah, and then like
and then do
rules
that.
as simple as that. Like, it's very quick to write it down if you like need to write it like that.
You can do this,
Yes.
and this is another way of doing these games. To me, it ends up being a lot of drawing,
Yeah, it is.
and also we don't have any of the like spatial information. So like, if G is in, for example, I can immediately see that H and Y are out, and so now 2 of my 4 slots in the out group are taken up. And so this takes a little getting used to, but once you can read it, it has a lot of information in it that isn't necessarily captured here. So this is easier on some level because it's easier just to write the rule, write the contrapositive, write the rule, write the contrapositive. But there are definitely some games where you're going to be running through this a lot. And so what I'm trying to do is get us to expose you to this and see if you can get to a point where you can read this. I'm not saying you have to do it this way. I mean, some people try to read it this way and they just never get comfortable with this. But some of this is just like, oh, okay, wait, I see what that means. Now I can represent that rule that way. And it can end up being a lot faster. So in this case, what I'm trying to illustrate here is, since they told us H is in, what I would do is I would look over here and I'd say, oh, well, this says if K is out, H is out, so I better not put K out. In other words, I have to put K in. If that just like never clicks, then forget it. Just write out all the rules,
I
right?
see it now. It's almost like you're saying they're like a puzzle piece. Like, K is out, so figure it out. It's just there now. Now that you said it, it's just but it took me the whole time. But like, what is he talking about? But it's like connected almost.
It is connected, yeah.
It's like, yeah.
It takes a little getting used to. I admit. There's like this is like conveniently easy. Like you just say, oh, if H is in, K is out, or if H is in, K is in, K is out, H is out, and you can just run through and write down all the rules, and that's certainly a way to do
It
it.
took forever though. I
It-
just kept looking at it a million times, like you said.
You can just like start going through a web of things, which is fine. Like you're right. Nothing's wrong about this, and in fact, you're less likely to make mistakes. Some people, I think, are a little bit more likely to make mistakes here because they're like, oh wait, what's the contrapositive? But if you can get comfortable with it, then it becomes just something where you're looking at this and just kind of following it, right? You're like, oh, okay, well that means that will go there, and you often have to diagram less when you're going through the questions. Yeah.
So if you do go through the method of using contrapositives, I realized, and I noticed this on like the Saturday practice test, that you said flip and negate, but I realized that sometimes I flip and negate the wrong thing. Like if that makes sense. Like if not J, then W, I have a hard time of like flipping that correct. So can you just like go over that real quick?
Sure. So if the rule is if N then not P, then you just want to flip both. So flip means this
So
thing
G-
comes over
P
here.
over there and over there, and then
Yep. So then your letters would be P and N, and then now you have to do the negation. So what's the negation of this?
Nothing.
see, not P then N.
No. Okay. So if you left it like that, then have you negated it?
No, that's my problem.
Yeah. So you switch them,
Yeah.
right? And then you negate both of them. So positive becomes negative, and negative would actually become positive.
Okay.
So whatever the variable is, it's going to become the opposite of what it was. And that's the thing, is you got to do both. You got to switch and you've got to negate. If you only do one, then you have a false contrapositive. Okay, so going back to this question, they told us that H was in, right? You were working on this one? And so because of that, we know that K is
Yes.
in. Okay, cool. What else do we know?
So I can see on the diagram that
Yeah.
since H is in,
Mm-hmm.
G is not in.
That's right. That's
Yes,
exactly
so
right. If
I
you can see
understand-
that, that's
I
great.
understand that, and same with there's another one. Yeah.
Okay.
And then okay. So then if K's in, then X can't be in, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see that here? If X is out, then K is out.
Yes.
And since K is over here,
Uh huh.
what can you not do?
Wait.
Well,
K's
what-
X is in.
X has to be in, right? In
Yes.
other words, I can't put X there.
Yes.
So I've got to put X
Okay.
over here. Okay?
So we have L, J left. And if we have
Now here's one thing to keep in mind. Remember, when do if-then statements matter? And this is not good. This is good not only for this game but for everywhere, like LR, anything. If-then statements matter when the if clause gets triggered, right? Like if the if clause can happen,
yes.
then we care about the rule a lot. If it can't happen, we don't care about it. Now, how many, I know this is a little crazy, but we have one if clause here. We have another one here, right? Because they have arrows coming out of it. We have another one here, and then we have another one here. So there are 4 if-then statements in this diagram, right? So at this point in the game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I got these 4 variables right here. Do we care about this if-then statement anymore, the G one?
No.
No, because G is out, right? So that if-then statement is dead. Do we care about this one right here, where K is out, H is in? K is out, H is out.
No.
No, because K is in, right? Do we care about this one?
No.
No. So these 3 if-then statements are
We're gone.
gone. Now, this one is still left, right? So I'd come over here and say, okay, if J is in, then W would go here. Does that look like a problem? Could that happen?
Yes.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. Now, if J ends up going out, do we care about that if then statement?
No.
No.
L, W could be an hour, so could Y.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, so basically it's like I only had one if then statement left. I only had one rule to worry about, and it's like, well, it could happen or not happen. So I'm done making inferences.
At this point, is there any risk in just going and finding the answer and saying, oh wait, she selects at least one X?
No, you could certainly do that.
Because you have to have that X, don't you?
You do. Yeah.
So we can just go ahead and select it.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is I want you to get good at knowing when you're done making inferences, right? Because otherwise, what you're doing is you're saying, "I think I'm done making inferences, so I'm gonna go look at the answers," which is fine. We do that, right? We get to a point where we're like, I don't think there are any more inferences, but maybe the person next to me is gonna find one. But since I don't know, I might as well go see, did I do enough work and found the answer? And then sometimes you do, and you're like, yes, I found it. That doesn't actually mean there aren't more inferences to be made. Maybe there are, and in a harder question, they would have forced us to go further. But what's better is if you can get to a point where you can confidently say, oh, I now know there are no more inferences to be made. And the way to do that is to go through the rules that are left, go through each rule, and just say, okay, have I taken care of these rules? And if there are any rules that you haven't taken care of, just ask yourself, okay, do they tell me anything? And that's what we did with J. And we said, no, it doesn't tell us anything. Because one thing that would have happened is, let's say we got rid of these three rules and we had the JW rule left, and let's say that Y was there. If Y was there, what would you now know? W's out, right? But even if you didn't think about W, could the J rule get triggered? Could you have J come in?
Yes.
Wait, if Y was right here?
No.
If you put J here, then W would have to go there, right?
Yes, so if Y was there, you could
You
can't
would
have
know.
J. You can't have J.
You'd know that J goes out, right? In other
But you
words,
can have W and L. Well, wait. You can have W and L because you can have the W. You don't have to have the J.
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All I'm doing is I'm going to that rule and I'm saying, do you tell me anything? And right now it's like, well, if J goes there, W could go there, so it could be in, but it also could be out because there's room for J here, and then nothing really happens. The rule's dead, right? The point is, if Y were here though, if it had been here, then I would have looked at that rule and it would say, oh, I can't put J there because that's not going to fit. So then J has to go out. So all we're doing is we're just checking off rules and we're saying, can I make any more inferences? Here we're saying, no, we can't. It's hard. But that's if you can figure that out, that's huge. I would say that's like, I don't really know, but I'm guessing 15 to 20% of test takers, that's all they can do that. They can actually tell you, oh yeah, we're done making inferences. No, actually, at the place, it's like 10%. Most people don't know. They're just like, inference. Okay, look at the answers, right? We're trying to get a process, and the process is, okay, what are my rules, and have I used them up? And if you've used them up, you're done.
Had we an extra dash there, and
Right
W, yes, and W was in, could we kick J out?
Yeah, J could be in or out.
Okay.
Yeah, because it says if J is in, W has to be in, but if W's in, we don't know about J.
Okay.
Yeah, cool, good question. All right, so which one of the following must be true? She selects at least one W. That's where we stopped, and we said no, we don't know. She selects at least one X. Yes. Done. Okay. 14. If the hobbyist selects both X and Z. So for 14, you can go ahead and select 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So X and Z. Oh, that's X and Z, right?
Yes.
Okay. Who's got this one? Go for it.
So you know you have K
Okay. Why do you have K?
because you, if they're, I have K and X go together.
You wrote down K equals X?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not quite right. If you come over here, if X is out, K is out. But what happens if X is in?
I guess they don't have to be together.
We don't know, right? But when I'm looking at this right here, if they told me that both X and Z are in, I would go right to these. What do you know here?
That
W and Y are out, right? Okay, so W and Y go out. And now that these two are out, do you know anything about W or Y?
Yeah, so that means J is out.
J is out, okay? Because if J were in, W would have to be in, right? That's not going to work, okay?
And then G is in, or could be in.
Okay, G could be in, so since we don't know for sure, maybe we should wait for a second here. Because it could go out, right? Do we know anything else?
G can be in.
Can be.
Um,
Could it be out?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
I went through the choices and just.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Are we done making inferences?
Yes.
Okay. How did you determine that? Let's go through each of the rules.
So we already have J and W.
Yep. Okay, so that rule's done, right? That's not
We
going to do
can't
anything.
figure out G or H.
Okay, so if G is in, then H and Y have to go out. Is that possible still?
Yeah.
Okay, so G could be in.
Yeah.
But if it's out, what happens to the rule?
Doesn't-
Dies, right? So it doesn't matter. Okay. How about this one? If K is out, H is out. Is that possible?
No.
Oh.
There's not enough slots left.
Yeah. So what do you now know?
That K and H are probably in.
Probably.
Are in. I mean.
Both of them are in. Well,
Oh, no.
focus on this for a half second.
Fair
What can't happen here?
Sorry, this process is so different than how I did it. So
I know,
can't
but
figure
so
out
here's
how
one
I
thing-
figured it out now.
Yeah. So one thing about your rules, by saying they're equal, that's it. You might have got these answers right, but it's not a guarantee that'll happen again because it's not 100% accurate. Thought on KH?
Yeah, you can have K. I mean, you can have,
Well, you can't have H unless K is in.
but you can have K in and not have H.
Yeah, you could have K and not have H. Because this is what we drew, I want to see if you can get to a point where you see this. So, what is this telling you about K and H?
That if H is out, then K is out.
It's actually if
The opposite.
if K is out, so the arrow is pointing to
Oh.
H. So if K is there, then H is there as well. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's different. Bear with me. What were you gonna say?
Oh, sorry. I'm just like totally visualizing it differently.
Yeah.
So.
So how are you visualizing the KH rule?
I like do it by writing it out, which you said takes longer, but just makes more sense to me.
So did you write this?
No, I have no K equals no H.
No K equals no H. Is that what you wrote?
Yeah.
Okay. So just for a half second here. If K is out, what does this mean to you?
That H is out.
Okay. If H is out, what does this mean to you?
If H is out, then you could have K.
You get that from this.
From that and reading the rule, like.
Okay. So your drawing doesn't represent exactly what you're saying.
I know. I think I do this in a totally
Okay. So one thing I would do is
efficient way.
yeah. So what I would do is if you're gonna draw these out separately, I would write it like this. Ugh. Don't write it like that. Write it like this, because that right there is reflecting what you're thinking, right? Otherwise, your drawing doesn't mean exactly what you're saying. Okay. So, anyways, this says if K is out, H is out, right? So for that reason, down here, can I put K here?
No.
No. Like visually, right? That's not gonna fit. So then I'm like, okay, well then I have to put K over here, and now that K is over here, that rule dies. Okay. So we've taken care of that rule. X is in, so we don't care about that rule. G could be in or out, so we don't care about that rule. And then the JW rule, again, we don't care about that because J is out. So since we just went through all the rules and none of them are either they're taken care of or they won't be implicated, it means we're done. who's left at this point? We have G, H, and L, and then yeah, they could go anywhere. Given that, which one following could be the group of fish she selects? How about? Oh, well, because it's talking about fish, and it's talking about ones that she could select. We know that the answer can't have J, right? Because J's out. So that's going to get rid of B, D, and E. And we know that the answer has to have K. And both A and C have K. So what's wrong with one of them? G and H together, right? So the answer's got to be C. Cool. All right. 15. The hobbyist could select any of the following groups for the fish aquarium except, I'm going to skip this because it's not an if question. 16. If the hobbyist selects a Y, which of the following must be true of the fish? Okay, so for 16, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If she selects Y, so I'm going to go ahead and put Y in the in group. Who's got this?
Why is a plan?
Put in the wrong. Okay. Y. Okay. So if Y is in, what do we know?
G is out.
Okay. Y is G out.
Well. So yeah, it's a contrapositive of if G is in, then H and Y are out.
That's right. So was your contrapositive? What was your contrapositive? How do you read it?
So I have a contrapositive
Yeah.
chart. So I have H or Y.
Yes.
G
Excellent. If H or Y is in, if either one of them is in, then G is out. Right. Okay. Excellent. So another way of looking at this is I can't put G here, right? Because if I put G here, then Y is going to go out. Question?
Okay, I'm confused because I was thinking that the Y rule was dead at this point because.
No, that's the then clause. It only dies when the if clause won't get triggered. Right? Like the if clause was if G is in, then this is what's gonna happen. If G is out, I don't know what's gonna happen. But here, right? Can you put G in? If you put G in, H and Y would go out. And since Y is in, I can't put G right there. So then I now know that G has to go in the out group. Okay? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, it's just a lot to keep up with.
I hear you. Yeah. Yes.
Question, looking at the diagram visually again, is it safe to say like that line divides them, they can never, the three be together, just looking at it?
Yeah, they can't. No, they could all be together out. Because when G is out, the rule doesn't exist. Yeah. Okay. So, Y is in, G goes out. Yes.
You can't have both a K and a J together.
A K and a J together. Okay.
It just got rid of a couple answers, so I thought it was.
Why can't you have a J and a K
Because
together?
if you have K and J, it means you have to have a W and an X, and there's only one spot left for the plants.
Okay. So,
So then you can get rid of E and B on the answer, like just narrow it down.
okay. So how did I guess I'm not following why you said K and J can't be together.
Well, because if you select a K, then you
Mhm.
have to have an X, and if you select a J, then you have to have a W.
Yep.
But you only have one spot left. So if you have both of those fish,
Because you already
then you
have
have to
one.
have both of those corresponding plants, but you can only have one more plant.
Okay.
So that's just not a possible combination of fish to have in this scenario.
I'm still not following because you have those two plants, but this is asking
Look
about
at-
fish.
You
No,
already
it's-
have one plant,
You already have Y.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
so we only
Yeah,
have
yeah,
one
yeah.
option left,
Okay. Yeah.
so you can't have those two.
I got you. So if you have J, K, then you'd have those two things, and you already have Y. Cool. Okay. Is there some reason that you focused on J, K first?
Just because I knew those came automatically with, so if you had those as plants, you automatically, or as fish.
I got you. So you're just like, oh, okay, I know Y is in. If I have J, if I have K, then I'm gonna have two more plants.
Yeah.
I can't have those together. Okay, I mean that's an excellent thought. And so then you can get rid of any answers that have both of them. And does that get rid of?
B and E.
Gets rid of B and E. Okay, cool. What did you do at that point?
Then I went and you can't have A because you can't have a J and an H together.
G and H, yep.
Or G and H, sorry. And then with
So you're basically testing out these answer choices, right? At
Yeah.
this point. Okay, that's fine. That's one way to get there is you can say, okay, well, here are things that aren't going to work. Let me get rid of those. Okay, here's some other things that aren't going to work. My preference in general is to see how many inferences I can make because it might just walk us to the answer, right? So before we get rid of those, let's just see how far we can take this. If you know that Y is in, you now know that G is out. What else do you know? Anything else? Could you put K in the outgroup? Just take a look up right here, right? Like I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, if I put K in that slot, I have to put H in that slot.
No, K has to
That's
be
not
in.
possible.
There's not room, right? So I'm just like, okay, well now I know that K has to be in. Okay, and so then I come back here and I say, wait, well can I put X here? Can I put X in the slot?
No.
No, because then K would have to go there, right? So I now know that X is in, which means, of course, that W and Z are going to go out. And if W and Z are out,
J is out.
J is out. So notice here, we know that J and K can't be together, but we also now know that J can't be in at all, right? So it has to have K and it can't have J. So let's start with J. That's going to get rid of B, C, and E. And we know it has to have K, so it's got to be A or D. And then we know that G has to be out as well in this particular question. So the answer has got to be, wait, what was left at this point? D, okay, HK out. Are you guys cool with this? Now, here, who's left? We have L, which is a floater, and H. We know that we don't care about L because it's a floater, and we don't care about H because this rule only cares about H when G is in, and this rule only cares about H when K is out. All right, guys, we're gonna make it. I want you to try to take advantage of this visualization. If you just give up on it, that's fine. I understand. But hopefully, you can start to see this. The hobbyist could select any of the following groups of fish for the aquarium except. Okay, so one thing about this is you can just go through these answer choices and test them out. Alternatively, you could look at other diagrams that have worked, but here, because we're looking for what cannot be true, sometimes it will stick out sooner depending on what you're looking for. Okay, so for example, how about GKL? So what happens when G is in? H goes out, right? So that seems okay. Then it says HJK. Now, in this case, if H is in, we know G is out, and so that's fine. J and K seem like they could both go in. How about HJL? So if you have H, J, and L, what's out? Okay, K has got to go out, and then H has got to go out. So that's not good, right? Like if I'm just imagining myself L, J, K, then I'm like, okay, I got to put G and H out, but K out is going to force H in. So that doesn't work. 17. The hobbyist could select any of the following plant combinations except. Okay, so we just have to go through this. Given the fact that we have diagrams already, I would get rid of any that work. So which ones of these in 17 already work? Okay, so C, W, Z. These are each of the following plan. Wait, no, could select. So W, Z.
Oh.
So I'm seeing X, Y, right? That's one of them. So that's going to get rid of D. X, Z is going to get rid of E. And then we have X in here. And remember we had some flexibility. We thought we could have J, W. So WX is going to get rid of A. And so then we're left with B and C. We have WY and WZ. We just want to test one out. Which one do we want to test out? Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, could you look at the original one and see, oh, there's a spot left for Z and.
Oh yeah, like this
If
this
you
would
put
all
L,
work out, right?
fine.
This is not conflicting, yeah. So you
Yeah.
could have WZ and then just go ahead and put L right there, which is a floater. So that's going to get rid of C. So apparently WY doesn't work. What happens when we have WY? When Y is in, what do you know?
No G.
G's out.
Okay, G's out. Okay, if G's out, what do you know?
H could be in out.
No, you
You
don't.
don't know any.
Well, you know that Y and X are out.
Okay, yeah.
And
You
then
got, or
the
not
K
Y,
is-
you mean
Yeah.
X and Z.
So K's
Yeah.
out.
So K's out,
Which means H would have to be out.
which means H would have to be out as well, but that doesn't fit. So that's why it doesn't work. But yeah, it's easier just to see that Z could go there. And you're done. Yeah.
So I've noticed that most of the questions that I get wrong are reading, like, a lot of the accept questions, I don't know why, like, I guess when I look at my diagrams, like, when I'm actually doing a time test,
Yeah.
because they're towards the end, I end up picking one that's right. Do you have any, like, tips for that? To just,
So
like,
you-
not messing up
Well,
the
so
question?
in general for accept, whether it's in games or logical reasoning or reading comp, I just cross out answers that answer the question.
Okay.
So it's like, oh yeah, that could
Cross
be
out the
true,
correct
cross it out.
answers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Right, yeah. The ones that are right for whatever they're saying. Okay, so that felt like a struggle. I'm just curious now, how many people feel like they can read this? Okay, so 2/3, a half maybe.
But I don't know if I can recreate it, but I can read it.
I don't know if you can recreate it.
New
problem.
Okay, how many people think they?
There's a difference, yeah.
How many people think they can recreate it?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think right now it would take more time
Mm-hmm.
than like it was a lot faster for me to just create it with the like if then statements.
Yeah, yeah.
So this would take a time, but I could see how in an actual test this could save you time once you get used to this.
Yeah.
But right now it's taking me a little more.
So do you have examples of other questions in the book that we could practice this with then?
Your best bet is actually to go into the daemon and just do select in out.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you do a bunch of these games back to back. And you'll see, I mean, I've set them up this way where you just link all this stuff together. The easiest in terms of setup is just to do this and then the contrapositive. But then your setup, which is what I'm trying to avoid, is just a ton of like information, really. And you lack some information. You lack the slot information, which you can get as you do the mini diagrams, but yeah, it's a toss-up. Question.
I have one question. So I feel like in this game we kind of lucked out in that the order that if-then statements were given, they fit very well in this. Like we never had to use a statement's contrapositive in order for it to fit in our initial diagram.
Oh, actually, we did two contrapositives.
We did?
Yes, because they didn't link in
That's good.
directly. They said, if you have H, then you have K. And we're like, oh, our H is out, so we did the contrapositive. If K is out, then H is out.
Do you ever find it easier, is that, I guess, do you ever find a moment when you think that like that's where you should have two diagrams? If you're given more rules than we were given?
No, I
does
just
that
try,
really
because
work?
even when I'm linking these things together, like if I had linked this all together from the beginning,
Yeah.
let me just give you this really quick so you can see how this works without doing it in the diagram. So if she selects G, she selects neither H nor Y. So if G, then neither H nor Y. So these things are out, right?
Mm-hmm.
then it says if she cannot select H unless she selects K. In other words, if she has H, then she has to have K. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, contrapositive. If she doesn't have H, she doesn't have
So
K.
you still would have done it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then that's just my contrapositive, so I can link it together. This is here. Here I'm trying to minimize the number of variables I have, right? Because if you
Yeah.
write down each of these, then you're going to have H twice, actually 4 times, because you have it in both rules and you have it in the contrapositive. Then the next one, she cannot select J unless she selects W. If J then W doesn't link in, so I'm going to skip it for now. If she selects K, she must select X. Okay, if K then X, contrapositive. Yeah, think about it for a second. So if K then X, what's the contrapositive?
Okay, no X.
No K, no X, right? So, okay.
No X, no
No
K.
X.
No X, no K.
Yeah, it's like-
That's how it links in.
Okay. Interesting.
And then the other one never linked in, so I'd go back and I'd say, okay, so if J then W. Those are all your rules. Now you could do a contrapositive change for that. That's just you can do that as you go, and that's what some people do. They'll do this, and then they'll write the contrapositive immediately. So they'll say if H then not G, if Y then not G, and then you just do the contrapositive as you go.
Okay.
What I'm trying to so like there's not.
It's basically just so you don't want to have like a line of every rule separate itself. Like you're trying to make these inferences as you're reading the rules.
Just like in ordering games, you know how we link stuff together?
Yeah.
I'm trying to link this stuff together.
Okay.
And so I can link it together in this thing, I can link it together here, or if you want to do the contrapositive, you can do this, and then you can do the contrapositive.
Okay.
Yeah. Elliot? I thought you had raised your hand.
Not that I'm aware of.
No? Okay.
Maybe,
Cool.
maybe I did.
Could you only make the diagram like the one that you just made in in-out games, or could you do it with other grouping games as well?
Yeah, sometimes grouping games, the thing is when you get into a grouping game and you have fewer if-then statements, it makes even more sense to put it right into the diagram. But you can do it if you have 2 if-then statements and you want to just draw them out, you can draw them and they're contrapositive. But like if I were to do the contrapositive of this, let's go back really quick so you can see this. This would be the original rule, that would be the contrapositive, right? If you have this, then you have these 2 things. If you have either one of the opposites, then you don't have G. Okay, then the next rule, if she has H, she has K. Okay, if she has H, then she has K. If she, oh no, that's not right, hold on. What was the rule? She cannot have H unless she has K. So if she has H, then she has K. That's the rule, isn't it? So I must have messed up the original one. If H, then K. So if H, then K. Contrapositive, if not K, then not H. So actually it would have to look like this. I don't know what I wrote. I wrote not H, then not K. Yeah, that's wrong. I got it backwards actually.
Yeah.
So this is not good. I'm not talking about it right. But anyways, those are the 2 things, right?
Okay.
Now, you could do the next one. She cannot select J unless she selects W. If J, then W. That doesn't link in. If she selects K, she must select X. Okay, if K, then X. That one comes out directly. If not X, then not K. And then we have the rule that's separate. If J, then W. If not W, then not J. So those are some chains you can link together. But I still feel like that's kind of a mess, too. In our games, this is partly the reason I think there are so many different ways to approach them, because people are like unsatisfied with the ways that they have. Now, the easiest one to set up is just to link everything, just to list everything out. I just don't like that because I'm like constantly going through a list of stuff. So, cool. All right. Questions about any of that? Nope. Don't worry, we'll do, just go and do a bunch of in-out games, and then you'll be like, okay, and you'll see linking it together this way, you'll see linking it together that way, and you can start to kind of get more and more comfortable with all of them, and then just decide what works best for you. Okay,